Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to help you cut through the noise. This week, well, it's been packed. We've sifted through a mountain of sources on everything from major geopolitical tensions.
All the way to some really surprising science news and, those human stories that often get buried under the main headlines.
Exactly. And it's a lot, right? Trying to keep up with global events can feel like drinking from a fire hose.
It really can. You've got power dynamics shifting constantly, big ethical questions popping up with tech, not to mention the environmental challenges we're facing. It's intense.
So that's our mission today. We've done the heavy lifting, gone through all these sources you sent over, and we're going to pull out the key insights for you. Think of it as your shortcut to being genuinely informed without the overload.
Yeah, we'll connect the dots. We're looking at those big shifts in global power, diving into some fascinating tech debates, looking at critical environmental issues and how major events are, well, impacting real people.
We'll try to give you the big picture, but also some of those details that make you go, huh, interesting.
Sounds good. Let's get into it.
All right, let's kick things off with geopolitics and diplomacy. Shifting global power and persistent conflicts. And wow, the sources were dense here this week, so we'll spend a good chunk of time on this. First up, the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Big news here. Russia formally ended its military cooperation deal with Germany.
Yeah, that's a huge step. This was a pact from 1996, nearly 30 years old, right? From the post-Cold War era.
That's the one. And Russia's reason? They're saying it's a direct response to what they see as, quote, hostile German policy.
Right. Moscow's pointing fingers at Germany's increased military spending, even talk about bringing back conscription. They're clearly framing it as Germany becoming more aggressive.
And Russia's been very critical of Western weapons going to Ukraine, hasn't it?
Consistently, they argue it just drags out the conflict. So pulling out of this military technical agreement, it really signals a major breakdown in that post-Cold War security understanding in Europe.
It feels like a formal end to an era. Almost. What does this mean going forward for European security?
Well, it certainly deepens the divide. You see Germany boosting its own military budget significantly. Russia sees this, plus the conscription talk, as a direct threat. It could push Europe towards, harder military blocks, maybe Germany building up more independent defense power. The trust is just gone.
And while all this is happening, Ukraine has stepped up drone attacks near Moscow in Russia.
Yeah, reports mentioned over a dozen drones intercepted. And the timing is interesting, to say the least.
Right, because it happened just hours after Ukraine had apparently signaled some readiness for talks with Russia. Kind of a head-scratcher.
It definitely sends mixed signals. Moscow's mayor reported no major damage, but Russia is pointing to this, saying Ukraine rejected a ceasefire offer back in June.
Putin's accused Kyiv, Ukraine's capital, of wanting a pause just to rearm, right, and warned against any North Atlantic Treaty Organization or NATO troops in Ukraine.
Exactly. It makes any real dialogue incredibly difficult when actions and words seem to contradict each other like this.
And adding another layer, Ukrainian President Zelensky keeps calling for a direct meeting with President Putin.
He does. He argues it's needed to speed up peace talks. But Moscow's response is pretty consistent. Not yet. They say groundwork needs to be laid at the delegation level first.
There's also the issue of Zelensky's legitimacy from Moscow's perspective.
Yes, Russia has questioned his political standing because his presidential term technically expired under martial law. They suggest legal authority might now rest with the Ukrainian parliament. It's another potential roadblock for any high-level talks.
So very complex diplomatic maneuvering. Now, shifting gears slightly, but still on perceptions. The source material brought up this really unusual fictional concept from Ukraine, the Army of Drones bonus program.
Yes, the hypothetical program. It described this idea of gamifying combat, where soldiers could get points for confirmed kills, redeemable in some kind of government marketplace.
That sounds stark, like something in a dystopian fiction.
Well, it was presented as a fictional piece exploring an idea. The source itself immediately raised serious ethical red flags. Undermining military integrity, dehumanizing the enemy by turning lives into points, incentivizing potentially unlawful targeting.
Even as a thought experiment, it really pushes boundaries on the ethics of warfare. Makes you think.
Definitely food for thought about where technology and conflict could potentially intersect, even hypothetically.
Okay, let's pivot to another charged narrative. Russiagate, making headlines again. National Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard, with support from former President Trump, is claiming declassified documents show a, quote, coup plot.
Right. The claim is that Obama-era officials fabricated the whole Russia interference narrative to damage Trump and trigger that investigation.
The one led by special counsel Robert Mueller.
That's the one. Gabbard alleges, based on these documents she described, that President Obama ordered the fabrication using discredited sources. The argument is it was a deliberate attempt to undermine Trump's presidency.
And just to recap, the Mueller probe did find Russian interference in the 2016 election, but it didn't establish a criminal conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia. Moscow, of course, has always denied interfering.
Correct. Now let's hop over to the UK's stance on Ukraine. Former Prime Minister Boris Johnson voiced some concern
About public support waning.
Yeah, basically saying there might be declining public interest in the UK for continued support, despite the government's financial commitments, a potential fatigue setting in.
Meanwhile, the current government under Prime Minister Keir Starmer is planning a coalition HQ in Paris, France, to coordinate Ukraine support.
Which Moscow predictably views with suspicion, possibly seeing it as laying groundwork for military intervention. So, yeah. Even among strong allies like the UK, navigating the support narrative is complex.
Okay, let's transition now. We're moving to the Israel-Palestine conflict, escalating humanitarian crisis and international reactions. The situation in Gaza, Palestine is just devastating, and the international response seems quite divided.
Very much so. You have Slovenia, an EU nation, taking a strong stance by blacklisting 2 high-profile Israeli ministers.
Right, Finance Minister Smotrich and National Security Minister Ben-Gvir. Slovenia accused them of promoting genocidal statements and violence, calling them persona non grata.
Which means unwelcome persons. It's a pointed diplomatic move, especially when you see the broader European Union, the EU, holding off on proposed sanctions against Israel related to Gaza.
Though, as the source noted, other countries like the UK, Canada, Australia, they have put individual sanctions on those same ministers. So definitely not a unified front internationally.
And the humanitarian crisis itself, the reports are grim. The Gaza Health Ministry saying at least 32 Palestinians were shot dead trying to get food from distribution sites run by a U.S. group.
The source described video footage, too, didn't it? Showing people being pepper sprayed by soldiers near aid. Just desperate scenes.
Utterly heartbreaking. And reports of ongoing deaths from starvation, including infants, it's hard to comprehend the scale of the suffering.
On top of that, Israel issued new displacement orders in central Gaza, telling people to move to a safe zone.
A zone that has reportedly been hit before. It's happening while ceasefire talks in Qatar in the Middle East seem stalled and attacks continue.
The Pope Leo XIV, condemned the barbarity, mentioning dozens killed waiting for food, and internally in Israel.
Families of hostages are expressing deep mistrust in their own government's handling of potential deals, so pressure is coming from multiple angles.
And even a cultural protest. A performer unfurling a Palestinian flag at the Royal Opera House in the UK. A small moment, but symbolic.
Definitely. Okay, let's broaden out to global political currents, emerging ideologies, and democratic shifts. First stop, the United Kingdom. Big plans to lower the voting age.
To 16, right. That could bring in, what, over 1.5 million new teenage voters?
Potentially, yes. It's part of a bill aiming to boost youth engagement. The government says it's about turnout. Critics, though,
They think it helps the ruling Labour Party, since younger voters often lean left.
that's the argument. But the source material offered a more nuanced take, suggesting it might actually boost extremes on both sides, not just Labour, maybe giving energy to newer or more radical movements. An interesting political calculation.
Definitely one to watch. Now, over in the Czech Republic, in Central Europe, they've amended their criminal code regarding communism.
Yes, basically outlawing its promotion and equating it with Nazism, bringing in potential prison sentences.
Russia has pushed back against that comparison, hasn't it?
Strongly.
Yeah.
They highlight the Soviet role in defeating Nazism and see this kind of law as trying to rewrite history. Different historical perspectives clashing there.
Yeah, this next piece for the sources really grabbed my attention. An analysis of a, quote, new Western ideology supposedly emerging in the U.S. The description sounds pretty wild. Imperial restorationists, nationalist conservatives, techno-libertarian billionaires, and the philosopher kingmaker.
It does sound like quite the coalition, but the analysis treats it very seriously. It describes a mix of visions, some focused on American exceptionalism and military power, others on radical technological accelerationism where, markets and tech solve everything.
And some even leaning towards something called the Dark Enlightenment. What's that?
It's described as a fringe, anti-democratic philosophy. advocating for sort of neo-monarchist or hierarchical governance, sometimes embracing post-human ideas, systems run by algorithms, capital, machines, basically techno-authoritarianism.
Wow. And the article warns this whole emerging ideology could be a civilizational threat, aiming for a tech-dominated unipolar world.
That's the warning presented, yeah. A shift away from democratic values towards something quite different, led by technological power. It's a heavy concept.
Definitely a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
Okay, shifting across the Pacific to Japan. Exit polls suggest the ruling party might lose its majority. What are the potential ripple effects?
Well, it could really destabilize the government, especially now, during important trade talks with the U.S. A weaker government has less leverage internationally, and it could lead to political gridlock domestically, maybe even snap elections. Creates uncertainty.
And at the same time, Japan's far-right Sanseido party seems to be gaining ground.
Yes, they've tapped into voter frustration with an anti-globalist, nationalist message. Their slogan is Japanese first. They deny being xenophobic, saying immigration isn't their main focus, but it definitely highlights how economic anxiety can fuel that kind of sentiment.
Now, for something completely different, protests as a business in the U.S. I read this bit about a company called Crowds on Demand.
Right. Their CEO revealed they were apparently offered millions of dollars to hire protesters for anti-Trump demonstrations.
Wait, so you can actually hire a crowd to protest, like rent a mob? That's surprising.
It certainly sheds light on the commercial side of activism. The CEO said they turned down one big contract, reportedly $20 million for a Democrat-backed effort, because they were worried about potential violence. But yeah, it raises questions about how much activism is genuinely grassroots versus, well, astroturfed or funded.
Definitely makes you look at large protests a bit differently. Meanwhile, back in the UK, in the port town of Dover,
a great British national protest took place. Demonstrators demanding tighter migration controls, criticizing the asylum system, chanting, "Stop the boats," shows the ongoing pressure on that issue in Britain.
Okay, let's look at Italy, in Southern Europe. A survey from Census, the Center for Social Investment Studies, had a really striking finding about willingness to fight for the country.
Extremely striking. Only 16% of Italians said they'd be willing to fight if Italy went to war, even though almost a third think Italy might be drawn into a conflict soon.
16%. What are the others saying?
A large chunk, 39%, identify as pacifists. Many others said they'd prefer to rely on professional soldiers, maybe even leave the country, rather than fight themselves. It suggests a very strong pacifist leaning in the population.
But isn't Italy increasing its military spending quite a bit?
It is. The budget's set to hit over $35 billion this year. So there's a definite disconnect between that national policy decision and the sentiment expressed in this survey.
Interesting tension there. Okay, briefly touching on U.S. politics again. MAGA supporters rallying around former President Trump after a Wall Street Journal piece about Jeffrey Epstein. Trump's denied things and sued the Journal.
And Senator Amy Klobuchar pushed back on Trump trying to blame Democrats for the Epstein situation. Politics continues to permeate everything, it seems.
Elsewhere, in Syria, a tense calm reported in Swida province after deadly tribal clashes. Looks like ceasefire efforts, including a U.S. brokered deal regarding Israeli strikes, are holding for now. Fragile but calm.
Less optimism, though, regarding the peace deal in the Democratic Republic of the Congo in Central Africa. Experts cited in the sources are skeptical it addresses the root causes of the long-running conflicts there.
In the U.S., again, an immigration story. An 82-year-old grandfather deported by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, after losing his green card, raising questions about enforcement, especially with the elderly.
On the diplomatic front, Iran, the Middle Eastern nation, has agreed to resume nuclear talks with European powers next week.
This is under threat of sanctions being reimposed, right? The snapback mechanism.
Exactly. France, Germany, and the UK are threatening to use that UN mechanism if a new deal isn't sorted out soon. It puts a lot of pressure on these talks.
And finally, a legal story out of India. The Federation of Indian Pilots is taking legal action against Western media outlets.
Yeah, specifically the Wall Street Journal and Reuters. They accuse them of misrepresenting findings and unfairly blaming the flight crew for a fatal Air India crash, even though the official investigation is still ongoing. Highlights the impact of media reporting during sensitive probes.
Okay, that was a lot on geopolitics. Let's shift focus now to technology and innovation. AI's evolution in industry shifts. Always moving fast here. Elon Musk's AI company, xAI, is planning a kid-friendly AI, Baby Grok.
Sounds cute, doesn't it? But it comes as their main chatbot, Grok, is facing some serious
Right.
criticism. Reports of offensive and inflammatory outputs, prompts apparently being changed without authorization, leading to controversial results, and concerns about political bias in its answers.
So launching a kid-friendly version while the main one have these issues, it raises big questions about safety and ethics, especially with AI for children.
Absolutely. The potential for harm from biased or inappropriate AI, spreading misinformation to kids, the responsibility is huge. It's a very tricky area for these companies to navigate.
No kidding. Okay, elsewhere in tech, robotics company Cartkin is pivoting.
Yeah, they started in last mile delivery, those little sidewalk robots. Now they're shifting focus to industrial robots for factories, warehouses, that sort of thing.
Interesting. What does that signal about the robotics market, do you think?
Well, it might suggest that the really big immediate opportunities are maybe less in direct consumer services, which can be complex and costly to scale, and more in automating industrial processes where the demand for efficiency is just massive. Seems like a pragmatic move.
Makes sense. Now, for a bit of corporate drama, the CEO of Astronomer, Andy Byron, resigned. Why again?
He was caught on the kiss cam at a Coldplay concert.
Seriously. A kiss cam.
Seriously, the company put out a statement saying leaders need to set a standard for conduct and accountability, and, well, that standard wasn't met.
Wow. Talk about the blurring lines between personal and professional life. Even at a rock concert, you're potentially under scrutiny if you're a CEO. A cautionary tale, I suppose.
Definitely highlights the pressure and the public nature of those roles now.
Shifting to electric cars, Tesla seems to be having a tougher time gaining traction in India than expected.
Yeah, despite Musk delivering some vehicles recently, reports suggest they're struggling to win over loyalists there. Western car brands often find India a challenging market anyway. It's very competitive, very diverse. Tesla's entry isn't making the splash some predicted.
Needs a different strategy, perhaps. And finally, a useful bit of advice on scaling a business, apparently from a former Tesla president.
Right. The key, he said, is making sure 40% of your customers say they cannot live without your product. Hit that mark, and you've likely found true product market fit. Focus on that metric, not just sheer user numbers.
That's a really concrete target. Good advice. Okay, let's move into climate, weather, and natural disasters, global impacts. Unfortunately, a lot of devastating flood news this week.
Sadly, yes. Starting in Russia's Far East, in the Yakutia Republic. Torrential rains caused the Indigirka River to overflow massively, flooding remote villages, forcing evacuations. Helicopters, drones involved in rescue efforts.
And this was unusual flooding for that river, linked directly to the heavy rain.
Apparently so. Very intense rainfall in specific regions triggered it, a sign of these extreme, localized weather events becoming more common, perhaps.
South Korea also hit hard by heavy rains.
Tragically. At least 14 dead, 12 missing due to landslides and floods. One county, Sancheong, got nearly 800 millimeters. That's over 31 inches of rain.
Just immense amounts of water. And scientists are linking these extremes to climate change.
Increasingly, yes. Pointing to the higher frequency and intensity of these kinds of events globally, the patterns seem to be changing.
In the U.S., some slightly better news from Texas, where the number of missing after floods in Kirk County was revised down to 3, but search efforts continue. And the UK has ongoing rain and flood alerts, too.
Right. Potential for flash floods still lingering there.
We also saw major storms. Typhoon Wifa hit Hong Kong, which is a special administrative region of China, hard.
Yeah, caused major flight disruptions, triggered their highest cyclone warning. It also impacted southern China, the Philippines, and Taiwan. Lots of damage, hundreds of thousands displaced across the region. These powerful typhoons are a constant threat there.
And earthquakes off Russia's Pacific coast triggered tsunami alerts.
2 big ones, 7.5 and 7.4 magnitude. Alerts went up as far away as Hawaii in the U.S., a reminder of the planet's power.
Turning to water scarcity and conservation efforts, Iran, in the Middle East, is facing a severe crisis.
Extreme heat wave, temperatures over 50 Celsius, that's 122 Fahrenheit. Reservoirs are apparently at their lowest levels in a century.
They even declared a public holiday in Tehran, the capital, partly to save water and electricity.
Yes, urgent calls for conservation are out. It sounds dire.
And in Afghanistan, the capital, Kabul, is reportedly on the brink of running dry. First time in modern history. Residents struggling daily for water.
Just a desperate situation. On a more hopeful note, though, the UK government has made a pledge on water quality.
To have sewage discharges by 2030, calling it a water revolution.
That's the plan. A big and frankly necessary target to clean up their water sector.
Let's hope they meet it. Okay, let's delve into business and economy. Trends and challenges. This first point is fascinating, the link between green tech and environmental costs.
Right. The huge push for electric vehicles and decarbonization means massive demand for lithium for batteries.
But the process of getting that lithium, it's causing its own environmental problems.
That's the paradox. Lithium extraction, whether from brine pools in places like Chile or hard rock mining, uses a lot of water, can damage local ecosystems, and has a significant environmental footprint.
So the solution creates a new problem. Is this just a trade-off we have to live with for a greener future? Or are there ways around it?
That is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? Right now, it's a definite trade-off, but there's a lot of research happening, looking into more sustainable extraction methods, massively improving battery recycling, even developing new battery types that use less lithium or none at all. So innovation is racing to find better solutions.
Let's hope it catches up fast. Elsewhere, the European Union, the EU, is thinking about mandating electric vehicles, or EVs, for rental and company car fleets by 2030.
Ambitious goal. But car manufacturers are pushing back.
Worried about costs, infrastructure, jobs.
All of the above. They're saying the cost of switching production is huge, the charging infrastructure across Europe isn't ready, and it could threaten jobs in the traditional auto industry. They want subsidies to help manage the transition.
Understandable concerns. Okay, some more specific economic news. The Wall Street Journal reporting that Atlanta's, in the U.S. state of Georgia, long growth streak seems to have ended.
Yeah, a notable shift for a city that's been booming for a while.
And in the UK, discussion around a proposal by Rachel Reeves, the Shadow Chancellor, encouraging people to ditch cash individual savings accounts, ISAs, for potentially higher return but riskier investments.
Basically trying to steer savings into investments that could fuel growth more directly. But yeah, it means asking individuals to take on more financial risk, which won't suit everyone, especially those prioritizing safety.
A tricky balance. And a smaller but relatable frustration. Drivers at Edinburgh Airport in Scotland, UK, avoiding high drop-off fees by parking in nearby laybys.
Happens all the time, doesn't it? A little everyday economic protests.
Okay, let's move to health and societal trends. A concerning trend in the UK regarding nicotine pouches.
Yes, growing use among young people. These pouches can be highly addictive, they're often unregulated, and they're causing health problems like dental damage and gum issues.
Worrying, especially if young users don't fully grasp the risks. Now, this next item is just, wow. Research suggesting fungi in our bodies might directly influence our brain cells.
Isn't that incredible? The gut-brain axis is already a hot topic, but this adds another layer, our internal fungal ecosystem, the microbiome, potentially modulating neuronal function directly.
What could that even mean, practically?
Well, it opens up completely new ways of thinking about brain health. Could targeting gut fungi be a future treatment for neurological conditions or mental health issues? It really emphasizes how interconnected our bodies are, that the brain isn't just this isolated command center. It's interacting constantly with these microbial communities.
Hey, mind-blowing, really. Makes you reconsider everything. Okay, back to more immediate health advice. Warnings about vibriosis.
Right, that's a bacterial infection often linked to raw shellfish or swimming with open wounds in brackish water. Health agencies reminding people of the risks, especially in certain conditions.
Good reminder. And a big deodorant recall in the U.S.
Yeah, affected over 67,000 cases of a popular brand sold at major stores like Walmart and Amazon. Worth checking if you use that brand.
Always check recalls. Now, this factoid from the sources. Allergies are almost unavoidable, unless you're Amish. What do you make of that?
It's fascinating, isn't it? It really points towards the hygiene hypothesis, or maybe the old friends hypothesis.
Meaning less exposure to microbes early on makes us more prone to allergies?
Exactly. The Amish lifestyle typically involves closer contact with farm environments, animals, larger families, maybe a less sterilized early life. This could lead to a more diverse gut microbiome and an immune system that's, let's say, better trained not to overreact to harmless things like pollen. It's like a natural experiment in immune development.
Really makes you think about our modern sanitized environments. Okay, time for sports highlights. Records, championships, and controversies. Big win in boxing.
Huge win for Ukraine's Oleksandr Usyk. Knocked out Daniel Dubois in the 5th round to become a 2-time undisputed heavyweight champ, Still undefeated, just dominant.
And in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, UFC 318.
Max Holloway put on a striking clinic against Dustin Poirier. Poirier was retiring after this fight, and Holloway really dominated, landing significantly more head strikes. Tough way for Poirier to go out.
Speaking of tough fights, Manny Pacquiao's comeback.
Yeah, the 46-year-old Filipino legend returned, fought Mario Barrios to a draw. It was controversial, raised a lot of eyebrows about whether he should have come back at all. Mixed feelings in the boxing world.
Sometimes retirement is the right call. Okay, Women's Euro 2025 football.
Some great moments. Germany's keeper Ann-Katrin Berger made an unbelievable acrobatic save. Also, the trend of missed penalties continued, lots of pressure, keepers getting better. Ended with a nail-biting England versus Sweden shootout.
But sadly, also some negative news from the tournament.
Unfortunately, yes. England defender Jess Carter faced significant racist abuse online. Police got involved, and she decided to take a break from social media. A stark reminder that racism is still a blight on the sport.
Terrible. Shifting to basketball, Women's National Basketball Association, or WNBA, stars are making a statement about pay.
Wearing Pay Us What You Owe Us shirts, advocating for fair compensation, which has been a long-standing issue. This happened alongside Nafisa Collier breaking a record with 36 points in the WNBA All-Star Game.
Good for them for keeping the pressure on.
Yeah.
In golf, Scottie Scheffler won the Open.
His first Open title. The world number one won pretty comfortably by 4 shots at Royal Portrush in Northern Ireland. And the local hero, Rory McIlroy, got a huge reception from the home crowd.
Great moments. And quickly, England beat the U.S. in rugby, match affected by weather, and Belgian cyclist Tim Wellens got his first Tour de France stage win.
Big personal victory for him.
All right, last section, noteworthy incidents and accidents. Some truly tragic stories here. A boat disaster in Vietnam's Ha Long Bay.
Awful. A tourist boat capsized during a violent storm. Dozens died, including children. Search ongoing for the missing. Just horrific.
And a ferry fire off Indonesia?
Yes. Carrying 280 people. Burst into flames. People had to jump into the sea. Several fatalities reported there, too. Cause still under investigation.
Now for some unusual and, frankly, scary accidents. A man died after being pulled into an MRI machine.
In Brazil, yes. Apparently due to a metal chain around his neck. It sounds unbelievable, but it highlights the immense power of those machines.
How does that even happen? The magnetic force is that strong.
Incredibly strong. MRI stands for magnetic resonance imaging. The magnet in an MRI scanner is thousands of times stronger than Earth's magnetic field. Any ferromagnetic metal, like iron in a chain, becomes a projectile or gets pulled with immense force. Safety protocols are absolutely critical for this reason. It's not just a medical scanner, it's essentially a giant, powerful magnet.
Chilling.
Yeah.
A stark reminder. Also, a Boeing plane had an engine fire.
Yeah, a Delta flight out of Los Angeles International Airport in the U.S. engine caught fire shortly after takeoff, had to make an emergency landing, keeps Boeing under that safety spotlight.
And a warning from a dad in Wisconsin, U.S., after a lithium battery fire destroyed their home.
Another reminder about the potential dangers if those batteries aren't handled, stored, or charged correctly. They pack a lot of power.
Tragedy at an Oregon waterfall in the U.S., too.
Yes, 6 people swept over, 1 confirmed dead, 2 missing at the time of the report. Just awful. And an update on that school coach crash, 4 people still hospitalized.
Moving to crime and security, a data breach in the UK Army.
Yes, personal details of spies and soldiers leaked. A major security failure prompting an inquiry. Also in the UK, a man arrested for double murder after a fatal fire.
And that shocking video from Albuquerque, New Mexico in the U.S.
The driver speeding off with a woman clinging to the hood of the car. Just wild. Plus, police searching for an endangered missing teen in Jacksonville, Florida, U.S.
Finally, protests turned violent at a hotel in Epping, UK, being used to house asylum seekers. Protesters threw bottles, smoke flares. Shows the tensions around that issue.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Wow. Okay. We have covered an incredible amount of ground today, from, global power plays and the ethics of AI.
All the way to devastating floods, the strange science of gut fungi, sports triumphs, and those really tragic accidents. My head's spinning a bit too, especially that MRI story.
Right. It sticks with you. But this is what we aim for with the deep dive, giving you that broad understanding, connecting the context, helping you feel genuinely informed without having to read everything we just talked about.
Exactly. We try to distill it down, show the links, give you the essence of what's happening globally.
So as we wrap up, here's a final thought to chew on. We've seen today just how interconnected everything is, right? A conflict here affects policy there. Tech issues have global ripple effects. Climate change impacts everyone. So given that intense interconnectedness, What responsibility do we all have as individuals, as nations, to really dig deeper, evaluate information critically, and seek out different viewpoints before we form our opinions?
That's a crucial question. In a world this complex and linked, understanding the full picture, not just the easy headline, feels more important than ever.
Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.